Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the speech synthesis API to do some pretty cool stuff. I'm going to build a couple demos and little projects to showcase how you can make the browser speak, how to change voices, how to change language. So let's get started. In this first demo I want to show you how you can create a button and this makes the browser say something. So here's a button with the text computer say something. I have a little bit of CSS which is not relevant here, but it's just here to make our button look good. And now we are ready to add some CSS. So if you're not familiar with this interface, this is CodePen, which is a very handy way to create small demos for CSS, JavaScript and HTML. In this case, for example. So what I want to do now is I want to instantiate the speech synthesis API. So to make the browser say something, we're going to use the speech synthesis object. We call the method speak. To the method speak, we pass a new instance of the speech synthesis utterance object. So we say new speech synthesis utterance and we add some text like hello. Now we're going to create an event listener for a click event on the button. So we say document.querySelector button. So we select the button and I add an event listener for the click event and we pass a function. This is an arrow function and I copy paste this code here. So the indentation is a little bit off. Okay. If I click this button now, I will hear sound.
Hello.
That's good. Now I can abstract this and into a method which we call say equals. Okay, and we pass the text here, so we don't need the arrows. And I'm going to say speak text. So we speak whatever we get as a parameter here, and in the event listener I just call this method, and in the event listener I just call this function say we said say something, so we're going to say something. So before I move on with the demos, I want to tell you that the theory is all explained in the page available at webplatformcourse.com. If you have trouble following along with examples, you can definitely look into the text and you will find all the theory, all the references, and more examples too.
Something.
So as you can hear, the voice is speaking in English, of course, and it's a male voice. We have a number of voices that the browser allows us to use, and I want to list all those voices because if you don't know which kind of voices you can use, how can you use another one? So let's list the voices that the browser offers us. So I'm going to start this project with a simple an order list here in the HTML and some CSS which I already prepared because I don't want to lose time on CSS which is not relevant. It's only going to make things look better. So let's start with this JS now. So what I want to do is to create a getVoices function which we are going to call to generate the list of voices. So I'm going to create function getVoices. To generate the list of voices, we must call the speech synthesis dot get voices method. And we assign it to the voices array. So on Firefox, this will already contain the list of voices in the array, so we could just Yeah, so we could just say return voices. On Chrome, however, this is not going to happen. This is the voices array is not going to be populated right now, but we must listen on the onVoices changed event on speech synthesis, because Chrome, if it's connected to the internet, looks up additional voices from Google, because they offer this additional voices which need server-side processing. I don't know, but this is how it works. So we must say speech synthesis dot on voices changed equals so voices equals again speech synthesis dot get voices. So to handle this in a cross-browser way, we must say if voices.length return voices, right? Otherwise, this is it. And we must, since this is an event that is called, we can return anything from get voices right now. So we must wrap everything into a promise. So we say return new promise, resolve. We are only going to resolve this promise and never reject it. So we say let voices. Okay, we are going to, instead of return voices now, I say resolve voices, and I just return on voices change voices equal resolve voices. So that's okay. I can go on and call get voices right now and say console.log get voices, and I open the inspector. Let me add it to the left side, and I open the console. Here are all the voices that Chrome gave us. So we have Alex, Fred, and all the user ones. Then we have many voices here. So now we can print this into our little list. This is just the manipulation. So we say const print voices list equals, we're going to say get voices returns a promise. So we must await the promise, right? I say async function, because if you use await, you must always wrap it in the async function. So let me close this now. With get voices, so I add parentheses around it and I say dot for each item in the array, so it's a voice, and we are going to say let's first just add a console log here. So we can say console log voice. Instead of using console log, I'm going to create a li element. This is a document.create element list item. Our list item is going to have a text in it. So I say document.create text node. Say voice, right? Okay. So let's make some space here. So our li element is going to have this element here as a child. So I say li dot append child, this thing here, and then after all, we are going to append the li to the UL we defined in the HTML. So I say document.querySelector UL, dot append child name. So I think we are good. No, we're not good. Right, so now we need to call print voices list. I called print voices list, our method here, and as you can see, the list is working, somewhat working. Of course, I added the voice object, which is a speech synthesis voice object, and this object has many properties, one of which is name, voice to name, which gives us the names, the voices, and we can also say which language does this voice speak. So Alex speaks American English, Alice Italian, Alva Swedish, Amelie French. So we're done, right? We have a list of voices and a list of languages they speak. I have a third demo for you today in this video. As you can see here, we have a nice colorful page with an input element. We have a select, which lets you choose from 4 languages, and I have a number picker, which will let you select one of the voices available for each language. So, and this button, when we click this button, the computer will say something. The computer will say the thing we added here, in the language that we choose here, with one of the voices available for that language. So I already provided the HTML, which is just an input element, a select, another select, and a button. It's very straightforward. And I provided the CSS too, which is not relevant for our context here. We need to write the JS. Let's start with the button. I'm going to create a document.querySelector button. So I selected the button, and I'm going to add an event listener for the click event, which we'll call our arrow function here. So inside this, I'm going to get the text that was inserted in the input element. So I say const text equal document.querySelector input dot value. Next, of course, if there is nothing in the text, we're going to alert the user, enter some text, right, and return. So if we have some text here, we're going to fetch the language. Const lang equals document.querySelector .language because we have a class here on the first select language. The second select as a class of voice, so we already know that. QuerySelector language.value. I'm going to duplicate this and use for the voice. Let's say voice index. We're ready to call some hypothetical method called speak. And we will pass the text, the language, and the voice index. So it will know what to do now. And now we're ready to implement this speak method. This is a little our skeleton. We're going to accept, right? We're going to accept text, language, and voice index. So let's first speak text in plain English, right? Like we did before. So we can say const message equals new speech synthesis utterance text, right? And I say speech synthesis dot speak message. Now if we click the button, we are going to we should hear what we said here. So let's say hey.
Hey.
So what we need to do now, however, is we want to change the voice here, right?
Hey.
It's not going to do anything, right? How can we do so? We need to do something in here, right? And the thing we are going to say is we must choose a voice. Choose a voice based on what? Based on the language and on the voice index. Let's first just do for the language. So we choose voice, and we must apply this voice to the message.voice property. So let's now go and implement the const choose voice method. Lang equals. So first, as we did before with the list of voices project, we must have a get voices method, which function which I'm just going to copy here and paste. This return a promise, so we must use an async method here. So we just say async, and we're going to await for the result of the voices. So we say await get voices. We're going to use on this array, we're going to filter the array and return a new array with only the voices that are available in that language. So we say dot filter and we get a voice element. We say return voice.lang equals lang. So we only return the voices that have the language that we want. So I can also drop the return here and just say voice lang, which is a shorter syntax to get the voices. And I assign this to another array, which is voices. And we assign this to a const voices array. Now I can just return the first voice that I find, like return voices.0. And this is the voice that we're going to use in our speak. So let me see if this works. Enter some text, right? Some text. It's not working. Why it's not working? It's not working because I failed to set the voice property on speech synthesis utterance. Okay, so we must first say what's voices.0, right? Console.log voices.0. It is a speech synthesis voice. Oh, yeah, okay. Being this an async function, it returns a promise. So we must say await choose voice. So this must be an async function. So now we can say here, hey, E. Seems to work, right? Let's say hello.
Hello.
The only thing that is missing at this point is we need to set this element to change the voice used for that language. So we have the voice index here, and we are just going to pass it to the choose voice function, voice index. Choose voice function here has a list of voices. So now, instead of just returning the first voice we have, it's going to return. First, we must pass the voice index here. It's going to return the voice index which I want. So let's say hello again. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Ciao.
Ciao.
That's it for this video. I hope that you learned something today, and I hope that the demo was somewhat useful. This is a relatively unknown API, but one that is very, very interesting. I'm going to create another video for next week, so with some other strange API and some weird demos, so stay tuned.